Welcome to the Brothers and Books Podcast. Read all day Brothers and Books Podcast by Hyatt.
Welcome to Brothers and Books Podcast Episode 1. I'm your host, Dylan Conway. Now, I've had a lot of thoughts and ideas about why to start this podcast, but no greater explanation comes to me than a Chinese proverb which says that the best time to plant a tree is yesterday and the best time is today. And so welcome to today. The next thing guiding my light and my motivation to start this podcast is simply that knowledge dispels fear. Now, obviously, as you can tell by how I'm talking to the microphone and looking at the camera, this is my first ever time doing a podcast by myself. So I'm hoping that through this journey, it continues to get better. Make sure you let me know in the comments what sort of content you want to see, whether you think I need to shave, whether you think I need to sort out the lighting, but just let me know in the comments and I hope you enjoy. To start the Brothers and Books podcast, and I think for all future podcasts as well, I would like to start with an excerpt from a book. And what better book to start with than an excerpt from the one I've just published. Sean Austin is an ex-engineering captain in the Australian Defence Force. He's more recently a lead project engineer for a company that makes autonomous ground robots capable of mounting 50 caliber machine guns, which is pretty cool. But his real talent lies in his ability to talk about the profound effect that reading had on his journey once he discharged from the military, his battle or his journey with depression and mental health as well, and now more recently, his artistic endeavor to write books and poetry. So In Plain Sight by Sean Austin starts with a chapter that explains the importance of reading, and I'd like to start with that chapter today for the podcast because, as you know, if you follow Brothers and Books for a while, all I talk about is the importance of reading books. So now I would like you to cast your mind and imagine a small room where you exist with a TV, a bed, and there's no doors in this little room. There's a fridge that fills itself up with food, and all day and all night you watch TV. You go to sleep when you need to, you eat when you need to, but everything that you imagine exists is in this room. One day, the TV starts playing up and playing the same thing on repeat, similar to how our minds do sometimes when we're going through hard times. You continue to watch the TV on repeat until one day you get fed up and you can't handle it anymore. It becomes extremely frustrating, you're sad and annoyed, and you notice there's a small bookshelf underneath the TV. So you pick up the book, you read the book, and at the end of the book you notice that there's a key. So you grab the key and you look around your room once more, and all of a sudden you can see a door that you couldn't have seen otherwise. So you open the door to check it out and you realize there's another room. You go back into the TV room where it's still playing the same thing, and you read a book and there's another key. You read more and more books and you continue to find these doors amongst what you thought was a single room now turns out to be a massive house. Now, what Sean is talking about in his book is the opening of perspective and identifying new knowledge through the process of reading books. Finally, you come to a room which is a garage, and it contains the necessary tools to go back and fix the TV or your mind to stop replaying the same thoughts that are bringing you a negative attitude, a negative energy, could be hindering your life. But you fix the TV and you decide to read more books regardless, because now the thought of going back into the room with the new knowledge that you've now found is too hard to do. Eventually you find out that there's a key that opens a door to outside. You step outside and notice that you were actually living in a mansion all these years. Now, the reason that I share this excerpt from the book with you is because what better way to explain the importance and the power of reading books than that little story right there. Through reading books, you can expand your mind to notice things that have never been there before. You can stop your mind repeating the same thoughts back to you whenever you find yourself in a rut or adversity or going through a hard time. And finally, you can step outside and open up a new world through reading books. And now, if you followed the Brothers and Books platform in the past, you'll know that we're constantly recommending books that have this ability to change your perspective on life. The second thing that the Brothers and Books platform is always doing is providing stories like the one from the start, where someone was going through a really hard time and they were unable to see that their TV was playing the same thing back until they picked up a certain variety of books. So I hope you enjoyed that little excerpt from Sean Austin's book, In Plain Sight. And I think it's a beautiful way to start the podcast. And I hope you also got something out of it. And if you want to pick up Sean Austin's book, In Plain Sight, it's available on Booktopia. The next thing that I'd like to talk about in the first ever episode of Brothers and Books is my story. So in the future, you won't have to get too accustomed to looking at my dumb face on this podcast, because I'll be bringing in some amazing guests, which I'll talk about after. So I think that this is the perfect opportunity to explain my background and where I'm from. So I'm Dylan Conway, and currently I'm an infantry captain in the Australian Army. More recently, though, I've experienced an extreme amount of duress and adversity in the form of a medical injury. Now, I'm not unique. No one is unique. We are all very similar. You watching this video, me and you probably have a lot of things in common. And as life continues, we're more prone to physical injury. However, for myself as a 25-year-old, it's one of those things that you think, oh, this will never happen to me. This will never happen to me, until it does. And just my luck. So my story with physical injury came at a time in my life where I was training to join the Special Forces in the Australian Army, and it required me to have a surgery on my lower back. Unfortunately for me, this surgery didn't go as planned, and after spending 2 weeks in bed, I was required to have another emergency surgery. After 3 weeks in bed, I was required to have another emergency surgery. And throughout this time, I was living in a house by myself, and I found myself to be quite isolated, and I couldn't do the things that I was able to do before. And this is not, again, an outlier of a situation. As we move through life and we become older, we require to change our habits or routines or our passions in order to suit our either health, our finances, our lifestyle, and go through that change. But through any change process comes a lot of friction. And for myself, not being able to walk or socialize or see my friends, this created a lot of stress and duress for myself. And I required to find a solution outside of the physical realm that I used to so much be involved in after surgery, in this situation that I really wish I wasn't in. Similar to how we all go through hard times, whether it's a death of someone close to us, whether it's a relationship breakdown, or whether it's a financial or educational or physical hardship, right? And so what I did and what I found was that the thing that I could still do whilst being physically incapacitated in bed for this extended period of time was to read books. So what I did was I made it my job to read books. So I'd wake up early at 05 every day, and I'd read books until about 2300 hours every night. And what I found was, while I couldn't connect socially like I used to, while I couldn't go to the gym like I used to, I was able to find the happiness that I found from these other activities in reading the stories of those who went before me. I was able to look at the horrors of the past so that I felt like I wasn't alone, and I could find the gratitude in my situation to know that there are others before me that have gone through really hard times. I was able to read books about meditation and mindfulness to bring the awareness of my situation to light and to make it a bit easier on myself as I was going through this hard time. And finally, I was able to read books about all these great adventurers, whether fiction or non-fiction, so that I was able to enjoy the stories of those who have gone before me and hopefully come up with the plan of what I wanted to do in my life once this disease finally and inevitably had gone away. And through reading all of these books, what I found was every time that you read a book, it seemed as if the next book that you read was better than the last. And what I discovered was there's a really great formula that I now utilize in my life about innovation. And we all have our own experiences, we all have our own upbringing, and we all have our own trials and tribulations. And that is what we call our experience, and it's half of who we are. The other thing that combines in this equation is the knowledge that we hold to this very day. So we have our own biases, our own perceptions of reality and how things work, coupled with our experience to generate the character that we are. And there's a lot of great sayings out there about, show me the books that a man has read and I'll tell you what the man is like. But I don't believe that's necessarily entirely true, because it doesn't take into account the experiences that the person has undergone beforehand. So if we couple the experiences with the knowledge that someone has received, whether it be through reading books or other mediums, and we combine those two things, we're able to utilize our information and our experience to create something new, to whether it's an opinion, whether it's an idea, whether it's a belief, or whether it's something physical like an art or music, a bit of artwork, a bit of music, or a really innovative idea. These are the two things that lead to that creation. So, while we can't speed up time, while we can't go back in the past and have different experiences, while where we are born, what our family are like, what our friendships are like, what our education is like in our schooling, we can't affect that. But what we can affect is the information that we receive through different mediums, which in my case was reading books. And that's what Brothers and Books is all about. It's about encouraging people to read books. And there's so many advantages to reading widely and reading often. And one of the largest ones that I have found is that when I was a younger man, just like many of you, man or woman, I used to concern myself with things such as going to the gym or training or socializing, going to the pub with my mates, and that was fine. And I still really implore that, and I love to do it whenever I can. But what reading brought into the equation was I found that it was essentially like a steroid to all aspects of my life. If I wanted to be able to socialize more, whether it was to meet someone of the other sex, as we want to do at different times of our life, I was able to read a book about how to do it more effectively. If I wanted to make sure that I was training at 100% and make sure that I was effective of that, I'd go and read a book about nutrition or fitness, and it would just bolster these different aspects of my life. And there are so many different books out there that are able to make you step up to the next level, that I liken it to Maslow's hierarchy of need. And just in a wave top sort of explanation, if you haven't come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it starts at the bottom up where we require food and water. As we get that as human beings, we look for our physical security until we move on to our relationships. And finally, at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is self-enlightenment. Now, if Maslow's principle and theory is correct about what we need in our lives as human beings, then books are able to help us at every level. So what easier way to do to make your life better and increase what you're already doing, or find new perspective whenever you sort of come across some rough seas, than reading books. You can do it in bed, you can do it sitting down, and people look at you more fondly because you read the book. Maybe it's a little bit of an ego thing, but people will come to you because you were well read and they'll ask your advice. So you're coupling your experience and your newfound information to create opinions, to give better advice to people and help them out and help yourself as well. And I love that reading books has this effect. The last thing that I'll say on my little story, what I found was as well, is that we look at different things that help us out in our life. There's a couple of categories, and there's nutrition, there's good mental health and mindfulness, etc. As you know, there's strong relationships, there's connections to the outdoors, there's purpose at work, there's so many different things. There's spirituality and there's religion if you're that way inclined, and tell me in the comments if you are and if you've read a good book on that. But through all these different things, reading books can definitely expand on them, and I would argue that it's the cheapest and easiest thing to do. If you look at wanting to get better at your physical health, you've got to sign up to a gym, you've got to start working out. If you look at wanting to have better mindfulness, meditation is actually really quite hard to get into. But what better thing to spend your money on than a $20 book that can potentially change your absolute life? As a MBA student currently, I think I'm paying close to $50,000 for my master's degree education, but I would swap all of that for 10 books in the category that I'm studying, 10 of the best books. And again, I think that's a controversial statement because it's not what we were informed growing up. And I implore you to disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But this is what I believe now through the benefits I've gotten from reading, compared to the benefits that I've gotten at a higher education. And for a lot of us, we're unable to pay for higher education, but we can, hopefully, fingers crossed, in Western society, afford books. And if you can't afford them, reach out to the Brothers and Books Instagram platform and I will send you some for free, unless this video goes viral and you make me all broke. But that's the beauty of reading books, which brings me into my next topic, the Brothers and Books platform, which is what I accredit the creation of and the innovation of with all of the books that I have read. So if you haven't joined me from the Brothers and Books Instagram platform, welcome first of all. It's lovely to meet you. But if you have, you will know that Brothers and Books is an organization and a platform where you can share your story and recommend a book for people going through a hard time. What I found was, although my experience was relatively unique in the fact that I had 7 surgeries, what was not unique is the isolation, depression, and the hardship that I felt going through that. And we all go through different times in our life where you feel those different things. And the platform allows people who have gone through the difficult time, as we all have, found light at the end of the tunnel because of a book that they have read that's given them the new perspective to persevere. And then they share their advice so that you out there, if you're going through a hard time, can read the advice, read the perspective, look at the recommended book and maybe pick it up yourself and learn the same lessons the easy way so you don't need to learn it the hard way. And I am so grateful and proud to be able to talk about the platform on this podcast today, about some of the milestones that we've been able to achieve as the community that we are in just 12 months. So in 12 months, there's been over 200 people share their story, share their advice, and recommend a book to those in need. And you will notice, if you're on the Brothers and Books platform, that so many of these stories, even though every single person is unique and sharing their story, there are so many themes that continue to come up and up time and time and time again. And that's the beauty of it. Realizing that you aren't alone in your struggles, realizing that you aren't alone in the different triumphs that you need to conquer, right? And that is the beauty of Brothers and Books. So there's been over 200 people share their story and thousands of others listen to the advice because of these people sharing their story, read the books they have recommended, and gone out and increased different categories in their life based off the books that you guys are recommending. So this platform now on the podcast will be able to expand further into these stories. They'll be able to get the authors on that have changed your life and get them to answer questions for you to continue to hopefully change lives, encourage more people to read books, and spread the word about the importance of reading books. The second thing, and I'm really grateful to say about the platform of Brothers and Books, is my original mission. And the original mission of Brothers and Books was to make reading cool. Thanks to so many thousands of Australians and hundreds of people around the world in different countries, whether it be Southeast Asia, America, Canada, you name it, India as well. We are changing the perception of reading books. When we're younger, I remember my time in school, reading books wasn't the coolest thing to do. However, because of the Brothers and Books platform, you've got people like senior police constables, undercover detectives, you've got nurses, doctors, surgeons, you've got special forces operators, whether they're soldiers or officers, whether they're doing reconnaissance or whether they're kicking down doors, recommending books and saying this is something that you can do that's going to change your life. So the community of Brothers and Books and all the support that you've given me is slowly starting to change the perception of what reading books is to you. I know that it's quite a divisive idea and conversation about what we're learning in school, whether the education that we get, learning about long division as opposed to learning about taxes, learning about physics as opposed to learning about how to have a job interview, is a divisive topic. And tell me in the comments if you think schools are teaching children the right thing or the wrong thing, or whether or not you wish they taught you something else. But one thing that we can control outside of the education system is our personal choice of education. I said it earlier in the podcast and I'll say it again. The best time to plant a tree was yesterday. The second best time is today. If you disagree with the education that you got growing up, if you disagree with the education that your children are getting growing up, then go and start reading widely and reading often. And that's the beauty of Brothers and Books. Because of the community, so many of you sharing your stories, there are thousands of Australians now reading books, taking control of their own education and looking forward to the future because of what books have given them. On a physical level of what Brothers and Books has achieved in the last 12 months is we ran the world's coolest readathon, which I'm proud to say had over 500 participants and raised over $65,000 for a veteran charity here in Australia, which is absolutely incredible in less than 12 months. And I do not accredit that achievement to myself at all. It is entirely the kindness, the supportive, and the altruistic people reading books and joining in on the conversation on the Brothers and Books platform. So well done, and thank you so much to everybody that jumped in on that. We also ran our very first Brothers and Books book fair, where we had over 2,000 people come and pick up their new read. So I know for a fact at least 2,000 people have gone and bought books because of the platform and because of the wonderful community that we've got. And now finally, Brothers and Books has become a publisher and also a charitable organization. So we're looking in the future to continue to publish amazing stories and books from people of the community of Brothers and Books. And we're also looking to give back to the community by setting up community libraries in places where people are having a hard time, so they can have access to the books that could potentially change their life. And I think those achievements, while it has only been 12 months, is absolutely amazing. And if we can change the perception of reading books, not only in Australia but around the world, then we are all destined to have a more bright and a positive future. And if it means that we can be selfish and learn a thing or two along the way, then that's what it's all about. And if you're still listening, I have to thank you, because this is what the podcast aims to do. It aims to change perceptions. It aims to increase the fidelity of the stories being shared on the page. It hopes to connect the authors with the readers, you, and it hopes to continue to change that perception of reading books. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have some pretty big names on the podcast and some pretty respectable people. Now, these people, and you can guess who they are in the comments, or if you've got a recommendation for who I should bring on, let me know. But these people, when they speak, most of us want to listen. And the reason that Brothers and Books is aimed at the emergency service organizations, but it's for everybody, is because when we were children, we all wanted to be the fireman, saving the cat in the tree, or running into a burning building. We all wanted to be the doctor that could help elderly, help each other, and help grow the community. Or we all wanted to be the soldier who took pride in his country and went to war and fought for something he believed in. Now, these are the same people on the community of Brothers and Books, sharing their story and recommending books. What better people to listen to about how to have a meaningful life than the people we used to look up to as children? So this podcast will have a myriad of those respectable people that we all wish that we could see through their eyes and live a bit of their life, coming on to tell other people why it's important to read books. And I am very much looking forward to it. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say thank you so much to everybody for jumping on. Thank you so much for everybody for sharing your story on the Brothers and Books Instagram page. And I hope that you are as excited as me moving forward with this podcast, meeting the people that have written the books, that have done something amazing in their life, that have gone through adversity like we all have, that have the advice for others. I hope you are as excited as me to listen to those people and come on this journey as well. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And again, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next time. And as a little hint of who we're going to be talking to on the next podcast, he wears a blue uniform. He spent a lot of time undercover and he is one bad ass. So if you've got any ideas of who it could be, jump onto the Brothers in Books Instagram platform for some more clues, and feel free to ask some questions of someone who's lived their life undercover, who's had a heap of experiences and has wonderful advice to give. I'm Dylan Conway, and until next time, read more books. Cheers, guys.